This is the Deseret News Sunday Edition, when your family needs to know more.
And good morning. Welcome to the Deseret News Sunday Edition. I'm Dave McCann. A tough but important topic to begin with this morning. A growing number of teenagers are struggling with increasing appetites for pornography. It's often first found during an innocent web search at home. And experts say the age of first exposure is continuing to fall. It's now figured to be around 11 or 12. A nonprofit group, Fight the New Drug, has been raising awareness about the dangers of pornography by taking the message directly to students at schools around the country. Later this month, they'll publicly release a free online recovery program. Take a look.
When we are born, we are given a world built on the decisions of previous generations. A world created by their choices, some good and some bad. Decisions are constantly made without the knowledge of how they will affect us, our society, and our world. But what if we did know the effects? What if we could make choices now that would someday lead to a better world? Every person has a choice. We choose what we buy, what we wear, what we say, and what we do. These choices contribute to an ever-growing swell that drives the course of society, eventually defining an entire generation. But it all starts with one choice from one person. 2 generations ago, society began making choices that have shaped today's understanding of pornography. In 1948, Dr. Alfred Kinsey published a best-selling book that suggested that all forms of sexual behavior should be normalized and that people should pursue all sexual urges regardless of age. Businessmen capitalized on this new idea and porn magazines hit the newsstands. Many became convinced that it was cool, harmless, and a gentleman's pursuit. Then, in 1993, came the internet. And like a tidal wave, pornography flooded the World Wide Web as a generation became consumed. And now, for the first time in history, hardcore pornography can be accessed from anywhere and at any time. So what does this mean for our generation? Through new innovations in brain technology, psychology, and sociology, we now know the truth about pornography. Porn is like a drug. It can rewire the brain, form addictions, alter views about sex, objectify the human body, fuel the demand for sex slavery, and reshape society as a whole. Pornography is often violent and abusive, a degrading lie that distorts the very meaning of healthy relationships and love. We are the first generation in the history of the world to face the issue of pornography to this intensity and scale. We are also the first generation with a science-based understanding of the harm pornography can do. And with that knowledge, we feel the responsibility to share it with others. We are determined to be the generation who pursues real love and rejects its hollow counterfeit. We will fight this new drug, and we will not rest until the world knows that pornography is harmful.
Clay Olson is the executive director of Fight the New Drug, and Dr. Jason Carroll is an associate professor in the School of Family Life at Brigham Young University. We welcome both of you. Good morning.
Thank you. Good to be
As
here.
a parent with kids, we're mortified by this stuff. As your studies, Dr. Carroll, show, what's the impact on pornography and adolescents as opposed to adults?
Well, we know that exposure at an earlier age is a particular risk factor for pornography potentially becoming addictive or becoming much more entrenched in a person's life. So the developing brains of teenagers and young people are of particular concern. There's
the argument that pornography is not addictive. What does your research show?
Well, we clearly see an increasing number of people struggling with addictive behaviors around pornography. We see that in the professional, in the counseling, and in the research arenas. There's still some debate and discussion among scientists and researchers of behavior addictions, as we're starting to call them, and are they the same as the chemical and substance addictions that we've traditionally defined. But the research is new, it'll continue to progress, but it doesn't change the reality of struggle that so many people are having with these types of behaviors.
Now, Clay, you're taking this message right to the kids,
Yeah.
which means, sadly, you're having this conversation with more kids than parents are having with their kids. What's the response you get back?
From the kids?
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because when we started this organization, we really were interested in kind of what the response from the kids were going to be. You know, this is a taboo topic. It's difficult. Sure. It's not easy. But overwhelmingly, throughout the United States, not just, you know, in conservative communities, we're seeing more and more youth, adolescents, kind of jumping on board this idea that pornography is something that we got to start to deal with and address. And the way we frame it, the way we kind of tap into the issue, it's resonating with a lot of youth, and they're willing to talk about it, and they want to know truth.
Dr. Carroll, how do I start the conversation about pornography with my 14-year-old son?
Okay, and I like that, and I like the age you're selecting there too.
Well, he's 14.
As we're aware. The key element to this too is that for too many young people, pornography is an isolated issue. Right? This really needs to be about a broader approach of how parents teach about sexuality, teach about relationships, and hopefully that's an ongoing process and pattern. One thing we do want to emphasize, I think is important, is that although we need to recognize the potential for addiction with pornography, that doesn't necessarily mean that we should have the assumption of addiction with pornogaphy. So I think as parents, right, if we find there a pattern or things beginning, we don't need to immediately have this concern that that's what we're dealing with, which can help us, I think, not be quite as anxious, understand some of the normative curiosities, sure, explorations, but the key really is that openness and understanding that we would have with our children, and to be open and direct with them in the ways that they really want us to be.
Clay, how tough is this for the kids when they can push a button on their phone and have no idea, and then all of a sudden they're in?
Yeah, I mean, the generation growing up today is dealing with this like never before, and they are being inundated with sexualized messages in the media, with opportunities to be exposed to sexualized material. Even when they're not pursuing it themselves or seeking it out, it's coming to find them. And so this is something that they're dealing with. This is something that they're questioning and wondering about, and we're trying to kind of give them an opportunity to make an educated decision.
Well, let's talk about this online program, and how is that going to help?
Well, the online program really kind of was born out of necessity. When we kind of started this, we had no intention to kind of go into that arena. But after thousands, literally thousands of emails from teens that hadn't talked to their parents, hadn't talked to anybody about it, but were seeking, coming to us looking for assistance and help with no money, no parental consent, they really had nowhere to go because other programs that were available, required money or parental consent. So we had to 2 years ago decide, let's do something and let's make it free. And so, currently we have over 7,000 pre-registered teens and individuals that are kind of waiting for this to be launched at the end of the month.
And what are the kids looking for when they log on to that? And maybe they don't want to talk to their parents about it or their religious leader, but they're going to go online because they can. What are they looking for?
They're looking for help. I mean, in all reality, they're coming to us because they feel like it's beyond their own capacity to quit. They're dealing with this to a point where they no longer feel that they have the answers, and they're looking for answers around them. And they need to, a lot of them aren't ready to open up to a parent or somebody else in their life, and so they're kind of coming to us to kind of get that first step. That's why we call it a step toward recovery.
Dr. Carroll, it's almost like a step toward recovery, and hey, look, if your parents aren't going to educate you about this, take your own responsibility, and here's an option where you can look into it yourself. How important is that?
Well, it's critical, the education part of it. I mean, what I like, and as I've had some interaction with Clay and his group over the years, I mean, Fighting the New Drug is trying to fit that niche where we've had other groups really take on intervention around addiction recovery, but we haven't had as much in the prevention and what I would call early intervention, getting into these patterns before they become entrenched and move into adult life and adult relationships. So having some of that education and understanding, but the other nice thing is that groups like Fight the New Drug also help young people appreciate that in time and when they're ready, it really is to their advantage to involve a parent and to reach out to others and to get the help. So in some ways, one of the greatest things as a STEP program is to help them realize if you need greater help, take those steps, and, it's worth it, and you have a sense of why it'll benefit you in your life.
Clay, your advice to parents with teenage kids?
Oh, love them, be open, and don't close your eyes to the realities of today.
And Dr. Carroll, with the overall picture of how you can hold this family unit together and eventually create more family units, which pornography seems to fight against, what say you?
I'd emphasize the notion that whether or not pornography becomes an addiction in someone's life doesn't mean that that's the only way that it can harm. There's so much misinformation, so much myths in pornography. Young people internalize just misperceptions and misunderstandings about their bodies, about sexuality, about relationships. So we really should be concerned about the potential harms, regardless if it becomes a repetitive or addictive process or not.
All right, Dr. Carroll Clay, thank you. Good luck.
You're welcome.
Going online with that, and appreciate your work on this very sensitive and difficult topic.
Appreciate it.
Good to have you here. You can read more in depth about this topic on DeseretNews.com. Look for the article, Adolescent Addiction When Pornography Strikes Early. Strange contest in the newsroom reveals the secrets of demolishing cluttering. Our MoneyWise gurus will explain how it all played out coming up next.